Hello there and welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, what you may not know about Doctor Who. This time we're going to have a look at the two-parter story, The Impossible Planet and The Satan's Pit. I hope you enjoy. Sound effects matching the door opening and closing sounds from Doom. Of course, this is because the sound effects are technically stock effects available to use anywhere, but obviously most people will associate them with Doom, because they're that recognisable. The simple name of the Ood was an invention contrast to Russell T Davies' typical flair of very obscure alien names. Here he wanted a very simple one which sounded very similar to Odd. Originally, the Slitheen were going to be in this story, more specifically another family from the planet of Ratsir-Calafitorius, I do not know how to say that, with the idea that they had been enslaved by humanity. The Ratsir-Calafitorians secretly believed that the planet was being explored was actually the dwelling place of their god, who would free them from servitude. However, Russell T Davies ultimately became concerned that the presence of returning monsters was distracting from the humans whose pioneer spirit he felt was the heart of this tale. This is the first story of the revived series to use a quarry as an alien planet. Quarries were frequently used in the manner of the original series. Russell T Davies was not a fan of quarries. The planet was originally just called Hell. The Sanctuary base was inspired by the Nostromo from Alien. Parts of the yellow helmets worn by the Doctor and his team, the sides and rear, not the front, look very similar to the parts of the space helmets worn in the same movie. The voice of the Beast is provided by Gabriel Wolfe, who also played Sutekh the Destroyer in Pyramids of Mars. The story is inspired by the 1987 film Prince of Darkness, in conceiving a plot about explorers becoming possessed by demonic forces, which he also wanted to serve as a challenge to the Doctor's own belief system. This is the first story of the revived series where the Doctor ends up stranded without the TARDIS. An early draft had a cliffhanger of Rose being possessed by the Beast, but this was discarded as Davies didn't like how this led into her being in a dream sequence subplot while possessed in the next episode. This is the first story since The Greatest Show in the Galaxy to take place entirely on an alien planet. The Ood were given long facial fronds and a translation device to avoid the need of expensive mouthpiece or complex animatronics. Scenes of bodies floating in space were filmed on an underwater stage at Pinewood Studios, which was also the location used for the comic relief short Curse of the Fatal Death. The Ood masks had eyes in non-human positions, so the actors who played them had to see out of a pinprick-sized hole in the mask. This story is the first to feature the Sanctuary Base 6 spacesuits, which became a regular fixture in the revived era of Doctor Who, having been worn by the 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th Doctors and a number of their companions on occasions. The prequel to these episodes were TARDISode 8, which had Captain Walker and his crew, while TARDISode 9 reveals more victims had been killed due to possessive influence of the Beast, increasing the body count of this conflict. The closing scene, in which the Doctor tells Rose that they're the stuff of legend, was actually the final scene Billie Piper ever shot as a regular cast member on the series. Her departure episode Doomsday had actually been filmed months earlier. Original ideas for what could appear in the pit included the Master and Davros. The episode was nearly going to miss the transmission day. According to David Tennant on the commentary track for The Impossible Planet, the episode was delivered on Friday of the week, causing reviewers not to get a press copy of the episode who were eager to review it. Some came to ask if it was due to the content, as done with previous copies of multiple episodes to prevent major plot twists being spoiled, but it was only due to the late production schedule that the episode was involved in. Coincidentally, this episode was shown in the week of 6606. It followed a wave of devil-related stories in the media, including the release of The Omen. Russell T Davies said that in order to inspire the design of the Beast, he sent the visual designers at the mill images of paintings of Simon Brisley, a comics artist known for muscular grotesques. Russell T Davies suggested that the budget was tight and they might have to use a child to represent the Beast rather than a CG giant. The money was founded by cutting out the planned Jaffa Sunglider sequence from Doomsday in favour of taking the lift. The production only had about 15 minutes left to get the scene where the Doctor gives his big speech to the devil in the pit done. David Tennant nailed it in one take, stopping the nail biting by the crew. Toby's possession wouldn't have been revealed until the climax of the story. The Beast was created when Phil Collinson pointed out that none of the villains in Series 1 had operated on a nigh omnipresent scale. The Beast's design was inspired by the Lord of Darkness in Legend. The Satan's Pit was the lowest viewing figure in Series 2 and one of the lowest in the revival era. Except for the final scene and footage from other episodes, the 10th Doctor is not seen in his regular costume at all in this story. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed. The Impossible Planet / The Satan's Pit is one of the most underrated stories in the revival era. In fact, it's one of the most underrated stories in Doctor Who in general. Not a lot of people really talk about this story because it seems to just go under a lot of people's radar. In fact, when I was looking at the viewing figures and seeing that it was one of the lowest in the revival era as a whole, as well as the lowest in Series 2, it makes me wonder that a lot of people may have missed out on this particular story, which is a shame because I think this is a very good horror-centric story. Is it perfect? No. I mean, there are a few iffy moments, such as the CGI on the ship. I think that looks kind of awful. But at the same time, you have the Ood who are being possessed. I think that's a really excellent and scary idea. I think the Ood themselves look fantastic. I think they're wonderfully designed creatures, even if the whole slavery aspect is a bit well, it's a bit awkward to say the very least, but they do make up for it in the Planet of the Ood story later on down the line. The beast itself is a beautifully grotesque creature. I love the design of this thing. It looks fantastic. I genuinely love the look of the beast, and I love the fact that it's doing all this possession. It's killing all these people, it's doing all these horrible things. The fact that it plays around with people's fears and anxiety and turns them against each other. I love the Beast in this story. The Beast is a fantastic villain, and I think the design is absolutely excellent. And even to this day, the CGI still looks somewhat good for the Beast. I think it's just a gorgeous looking creature. I will say this, I think the original idea of having like a child do it was an interesting idea, to say the very least. It's not going to be as impactful as the big Beast itself, but it would have been creepy. You know, if you really think about it, it would have been creepy and just chilling to have this little child, you know, probably talking to the Doctor in this equi voice perhaps. I will say this, I'm kind of glad they didn't go with the Master or Davros in the pit. I think that would have taken it out of the story, in my opinion. I'm glad they reserved those characters for equally excellent stories later down the line. I do think this is a very underrated story overall. That said, I hope you enjoyed this edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I'll see you next time.